Someone or some of all the viewers that were with us here yesterday, I think they are here also today. And perhaps you remember that you had the opportunity to raise questions, and I'm very happy for all the questions that came in, and I hope that you can write questions here today as well. So here I stand with you, Maja Groff, and many perhaps of the viewers recognize you from the work with Global Challenges Foundation. You were also one of the winners in our prize competition. Otherwise, you are an international lawyer based in The Hague, and you worked with multilateral treaties, with criminal tribunals, and so far. You also looked into day one. What did you bring anything with you?
Yeah, indeed. I really enjoyed day one, and it reminded me of the comments of Australian philosopher Toby Ord, who calls this moment in human history the precipice, where we're confronted with these intersecting existential or global catastrophic risks, also these systemic risks that Augusto has mentioned, financial instability, economic inequality. So we have, of course, the weapons risks, we have the ecological risks, climate, pandemics. So we're living in this very important time, I think. I very much agree with him. And I think that came through very, very nicely yesterday. And it's also excellent that the Global Challenges Foundation is really trying to create a broader awareness of the risks that we are collectively facing at the moment.
Right. And it's when you mention it, I mean, it's really is a complexity, and they are interconnected. And that's hard to respond to. We are later going to talk, you and me, about the need to have governance for that, because we are not there. We don't have that governance.
Not yet.
Not yet, but in a couple of hours. So what are your hopes for day two?
Yes, well, I'm really, really looking forward to our various panels featuring various proposals that are in the Climate Governance Commission's interim report. But I'm really excited today to sort of shift a focus to solutions, possible solutions. As we heard yesterday from Johan Rockström, the IPCC has been very clear the science is very dire, very serious, yet we have this narrow window for action. So how can we, put our heads together and think of how can we think in different ways? How can we really look at what the solutions are, especially in terms of governance, and to really connect the layers of governance to make this decade count? Right.
We're soon going to talk about this report, but it's made by the Global Governance Commission, Climate Governance Commission, and you were one of the founders. What was the purpose of that commission?
Yes, so the Climate Governance Commission, convened under the auspices of the Global Challenges Foundation, seeks to really contribute and to fill a gap in sort of the dominant policy discourses, which really aren't talking so much about governance and global governance in terms of addressing climate. So on the Commission, we really hope to propose innovative models, innovative approaches to governance. And for me, it's really building on the success of the 2015 Paris Agreement. How can we have, as Christiana Figueres says, a stubborn optimism going forward to what we can collectively achieve as an international community? So the Climate Governance Commission, we launched it, soft launch, first in 2019, in the fall at the Global Green Growth Institute in Seoul, which is chaired by Ban Ki-moon. And at that first strategy meeting, there was really this feeling that the Commission's work should not just be another report or reports that sort of, are more academic or sit on the shelf and gather dust, but really an engaged and sort of active sort of community of practice that is built within and by way of the Commission's activities. So I'm really delighted that we have made a lot of progress in that respect. And a lot of our collaborators that have contributed different proposals to this interim report really are part of this community of practice and engagement.
Right, and now we're going to go in and look into this report. So please follow me to your colleagues here. And then I'm together with some of my colleagues. Welcome, Linda Burenius. You are Head of Development at the Global Challenge Foundation. And Magnus, we saw you yesterday. You are Head of Research. And Maja is here with us today. So maybe a question to all of you. What would you say is the main purpose of the report, Magnus?
Yeah, thank you. Before answering, I would like to take the opportunity to actually thank all the people who have been contributing, our partners who have been with us in this project, the Exponential Roadmap initiative that we have collaborated very closely with and has built upon in this work, Stimson Center, who has been with us as a very supportive partner in the Global Governance Forum, but also all of the people who have been participating in this. Maja mentioned them. There are more than 50 people who have been contributing by advising or writing or reviewing different proposals for this report. So I would like to mention all of them by name, but I don't think that we have time for that. But
you can see that on our homepage.
Yes. So yeah. A big thank you to all of those people. It has been really a collective effort, just as Maja said, and that is very much part also of one of the purposes of the report. That is to mobilize support from different sectors of society for governance reforms, to make businesses see the role of global governance in making climate ambitious businesses see the role of global governance in facilitating changing their business models towards a more sustainable.
And it's been authors from around the globe.
Yes.
So and Linda, how should we read this report? How is it structured?
I would also like to just complement the question and the purpose of the report. Because also I think you can see it as a smorgasbord with a rich menu of options on how to improve global governance. And in that way, I hope that it will further fuel continued discussion, consideration. And the report is structured in two parts. So in the first part, it's like more of a chapeau where we have a discussion in moving from challenges to solutions. And then in the second part, we have this smorgasbord of several governance proposals from the different authors. And if I may just say a few words about the two parts. So in the first part, we start with the challenge that we know that we have to halve the carbon emissions every decade if we are going to have a chance to reach the 1.5 degree target. And we also know that we are far from that now. If you take a look at all the countries' contributions under the Paris Agreement, that falls short. So here we identify three climate action gaps, where the first gap is that we already know that we have technical and economic solutions to solve the climate crisis. As Magnus just mentioned, we have started here with the collaboration. We have the Exponential Roadmap and the 36 viable solutions that already exist, as, for example, massive energy efficiency, massive investments in renewables. We have to move from the linear economy to more circular business models and so on. All those solutions exist, but they are not implemented in the pace and scale needed. And that leads us to the second climate action gap, that is the policy climate action gap. And policies to promote the implementation of these technical and economic solutions also exist, as, for example, price on carbon or ban on fossil fuels, green tax shift, etc. That exists, but these policies are not either implemented in the pace and scale needed. And that leads us to the third gap, what is the governance gap, where we today lack effective governance mechanism that can implement those policies in the scale and pace needed. And from here, we move then in the report to the second part, where we explore different types of governance solutions from the proposals or the submissions. And the second part is divided in 4 areas. We start with global and economic and development dimensions. And then we have one part in strengthened international law. And then the third part is using existing architecture and reformed and new institutions. And then the fourth part is bottom-up pathways. So that is how you can read this report.
And the report, I mean, it's launched today? Or
Yes.
so, and where can it be found?
Yeah, on the website.
On the website
Yes,
of
Global
ESA.
Challenges Foundation's
Very
website.
good. And Magnus, there are many different ideas on exponential thinking and exponential suggestions. Can you collaborate a little bit on that?
Yes. Just one thought more about the purpose of the report. As Linda said, that we have these different gaps. So one purpose of the report is actually to bridge the gap between there is perhaps a fourth gap between the discussion on what needs to happen on the ground, or the discussion about technical solutions, the discussion about how consumption patterns need to change, and the discussion about what natural carbon sinks we need to protect, and so on, and the discussion on global governance reform. Global governance will not change anything by itself. It can only support, the decisions need to be taken in boardrooms and in city halls and in villages and municipalities and by individuals all around the world. So what global governance can do is simply to set the stage to coordinate our actions in the right direction.
Set
really,
prices, take away subsidies, prohibit things.
Yeah. So I think that one purpose of the report is also to make the connection and see what is it that we need global governance for, and how can it facilitate those solutions that already exist. So I don't know if you want to also add to the
overall purpose
of the.
I think it's along the lines, of course, of what you both have said about moving from the solutions to the implementation. And also on the global governance front, there's been a lot of defeatism, sort of like a path dependency, about very low ambition for the strength we can have for global governments, whatever its vital function might be. But now I think we do have a moment of opportunity, because the science is crystal clear. There was a lot of strong headwinds against more substantial action because of misinformation and sort of legacy industry, lobbying, et cetera. But now there's a window where the science is clear, and we can start to think rationally, logically, what do we need to really implement the necessary vital policies to meet the Paris Agreement targets, and how can we think in a new way, exponentially, and also, a new phase of really radical collaboration, to quote Johan Falk at the Exponential Roadmap. How do we create that mentality, the stubborn optimism, again, to quote Christiana Figueres, to really think clearly and to collaborate, to think of the new ways that global governance can really support the necessary action.
And by exponential, that is kind of theoretical concept, perhaps, that we use. But one thing is that things need to happen really fast now. We have been dragging our feet behind us for so long that now we're really, as Johan Roxon said, we are not out of time, but we are really, the window of opportunity is closing very quickly. So we need to act fast. And then one basic idea behind the Exponential Roadmap that we have taken up and elaborated on or continued to build on is the idea that many of the solutions, like diffusion and adoption of new behaviors or technologies or innovations often do not follow a linear trajectory, but rather an exponential trajectory.
We all like these exponential hockey sticks.
Yeah, exactly. And there are positive feedback mechanisms that you can activate, and there are tipping points that once you cross them, then the process becomes self-generating and accelerating. And that provides us with an opportunity for policy, for very well-targeted policy interventions to have very high impact. Well-targeted and well-timed policy interventions. That to use an image, you don't need to push the carriage all the way to your goal. You just need to push it above the hilltop, and then it will start gaining speed by itself.
But for that, you also need a governance that could catalyze it, and this report gives us that.
Yeah, so it will not happen by itself. That is one conclusion. You need to be aware. It will not happen by itself, because many of those solutions are, to begin with, well, development seems very slow to begin with, and as long as the new innovations are small, they are at a disadvantage. Well, when you're the only one driving an electric car, you will not find a charging station anywhere, whereas if you drive a petrol car, you will find petrol anywhere. But as they grow, so the role of policy is really to push those solutions that we need above the tripping point when they start to grow by themselves.
And for that, the governance is needed.
Exactly.
So this report also then contributes to that change, I guess.
Yes, and I can just say a little bit about the approach taken in the 23 governance proposals or perspectives that we feature in the report from partners. As Linda was saying, the different categories of those proposals. But in general, we've also taken, more of a medium to long term. What are sort of some of the major global governance institutional changes that might need to happen? More from a medium or longer term, ideas that have been around for a long time. They're not new. Revising the UN Charter to account for global ecological risk and urgency, a global environment agency. So these are more medium, longer term, which may become more feasible as, of course, unfortunately our situation becomes even more serious. And just on that note, in terms of shifting of what is called the Overton window about the acceptable sort of spectrum of policy choices at any given time. I've heard recently some former heads of state say that there is a need for an IMF-like body to govern climate. So there is in the highest level political discourses a thinking that there might need to be these stronger institutions. But on the other hand, there is so much you can do now within the current climate governance architecture, and we have excellent contributors and contributions on that front to really scale up these necessary policies and implement them in the really short term.
Linda, may I ask you, are there any things that you learned from being in the report, or any key conclusions from the report that you want to share with us?
Personally, I like very much that the report highlights both the bottom-up pathways and what we see here and now, but also the need and proposals on how to strengthen the global governance architecture. And I think that these two perspectives, we must work with both at the same time. And also, of course, there is a risk that if you only work with consensus, you only agree on a quite a low level of ambition, but then the leadership in the progressive clusters and bottom-up pathways can create quite a dynamic circle here. So that's something that I personally take with me.
Are there any key learnings from your own journey with this report?
Well, yes. Well, one key learning is that, we cannot excuse our lack of action by talking by lack of ideas. There are lots, or lack of opportunities. There are lots of opportunities to act. There are lots of ideas, and we know basically what needs to be done. We simply must get our act together and do what we need to do.
Okay, thank you very much. We will come back to this idea, but maybe the best thing is to go in to the web page and read the report, or at least start with the summary and see what suggestions that interest you the most. We're going to continue the discussion, and after we heard some voices, we will also meet with some people that are very much into politics around this. So let's start by listening to some other voices.